In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome to After the Game. I'm Josh Baker, along with my Hall of Fame co-host, Coach Sullivan. Sully, how we doing today?
Man, doing great. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm excited. My oldest friend in the coaching business, the one guy that is in the coaching that I knew well before I got into business.
Yep.
Coach Jamie Rodgers. Jamie, how you doing?
Man, awesome. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on. I've watched pretty much all the other episodes, so I'm excited.
All right, so you've seen kind of the path that we
yeah.
go. You know, don't feel free to take us any direction you want to go with. As long as we're not talking about John Staples, we're good.
I got you, I promise.
So Jamie grew up McClenny.
Yeah.
McClenny boy, Baker County High School, right?
Yep.
And that's where, is that where, I mean, I know you well enough to know the full story, but
Yeah.
We're football, baseball guy at Baker, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's where I fell in love with sports, you know what I mean? That's all I wanted to do from day one. I hadn't been able to hit a baseball, probably didn't get a college education. I'm probably not sitting here, but yeah, you know, me and you played against each other long time ago in both sports, and you know, yeah, it's I loved my time there. It was awesome. I wish the football experience would have been a little bit better. And you guys can understand this. Yeah. I had 3 coaches in 4 years, and that's tough. And you know, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade were all different coaches, and it's just tough. And I feel for kids that have to deal with that. So, but anyway, yeah, it was fun playing and growing up there. Like, it was still the same back then. Like, everything shut down for baseball games, everything shut down for football games. It was a great place to grow up and a great place to play.
Yeah. So I joke about Stapes, right? But the consistency on the baseball field, probably the reason you went to JU to play baseball, more so than going somewhere to play football?
Yeah,
just a better experience?
Well, that and height, you know.
Right.
If I was 6'3" or 6'4", maybe the football route would have been a little bit different. But, yeah, you know, when Stapes got there, he was one of the ones that kind of changed the outlook for us. He brought something a little bit different. He wasn't a hometown guy. Right, and he kind of changed, like, hey, there's more out there. You know what I mean? Let's shoot for something bigger. And he got there our junior year and completely turned us around, really hard on us, which is what we needed.
Right. Hard but a player's coach.
Hard but a player's guy. Oh, yeah. You won't find anybody that played for Stapes that don't love him for the most part. I mean, 95% of the guys out there are going to be like, yeah, that's my guy. You know what I mean? But all the ones that weren't tough, they got run off anyway, so it didn't matter. Yeah.
So you decided to go to JU.
Yeah,
right? As a baseball player.
Yeah, I had a couple options to play, you know, nose guard at some smaller places, but you know, when the decision time came, it was financially for sure. First semester, I lived at home, so I didn't have to spend. We didn't have the means to be buying or renting an apartment or anything like that. So I drove. We got up at 4:30. Me and Jarvis Frazier and Dale a lot of times was with us, carpooling at 4:30 in the morning to make workouts. You know, and then going to class and doing all over. After that first semester, we got everything taken care of financially. So,
well, one of those guys didn't belong in that car.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. But man, we had a good time. You know, they just started the football program there at the time. Right. That was the first year. Yeah. And I was like, man, I'd love to try to do both. Yeah. And I was going to get that opportunity, I think. And Coach Alexander wasn't real high on it, you know, especially when I started playing quite a bit at first and catching some. And he wasn't real high on it. But there was a lot of guys that was in our high school that 3 or 4 went and played football. We had special scholarships back then that people didn't know about it. The Nab family had laid out tons of money previously that we never knew about growing up. And the Gertrude Nab scholarship, I was fortunate to get my hands on one of those, and it took care of a lot of it financially, which is another reason. Well, the only reason I'd be able to go baseball only took about half of it. You know, baseball scholarships are very, very fickle. Like 11.7 still, which is insane, by the way. If we're going to talk sports, that's insane. Yes. There's only 11.7 scholarships for 30 people. Yeah.
Talking about changing it here soon, so we'll see.
Man, they need
but
to.
Still, you're going to have the schools that can afford to do more and the schools that can't.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the haves and have-nots will be more. They'll have more. Yeah, but you know,
separate.
And so yeah, that was where we got our start, and I was, you know, I was very fortunate to play at JU. When you look at me, I'm probably not the typical Division I baseball body, you know, and they gave me a shot anyway, and.
Well, and that's a unique deal, too, because we talk about coaching fraternity, Sully, and coaching trees, but that JU baseball coaching fraternity is huge in the area. Not many football guys. Right. I think you may be the only one, but tons of baseball guys come from the JU that just stay locally. I mean, Osbeck and guys like that.
Those are all guys that, you know, brought me in as on my recruiting trips and stuff. They were on the way out, but I was a senior in high school coming in. Those guys were all part of the visits. It was awesome.
Right.
It is a close knit group, and we don't talk maybe as much as we should, but we all kind of keep up with each other, like with our careers, and see where we're going.
And TA did a good job with that, right? Culture wise.
Yeah, I mean, he not sure how many wins he ended up with. It had to be close to 1,000, I would think. But then, he did a good job of keeping us close. And I always had the assistant coaches that were kind of local. I think we had Coach Shepard came in from Purdue at one time. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. And but everybody else is kind of local. Coach Green was one of my favorite guys in the whole world, man. He changed my perception on athletics. And I mean, I was just a country kid that come in to JU. When he started talking, man, he lost me a lot of times. I was like, I'd go back to him and say, hey, Coach, let's talk about this, this part of hitting or this part of the game or whatever. It was a lot of fun. Yeah,
I've been lucky enough to work with that joker for the last 10 years, and I can tell you, he knows he's got a 5-minute limit with me when he calls. You got 5 minutes, Rusty, we got to get it, because if you don't set it, I mean, it's an hour. I can imagine how team meetings were with him.
Oh, yeah, it was great, though. I mean, we did learn a lot. He would get a little long maybe sometimes, but it was great.
Best storyteller I know.
Oh, he was a great storyteller back then, so I can only imagine this time.
So after your playing days at JU, right? Mm-hmm. Zero idea that you want to be a coach, right? Right out of college.
Yeah, man. I was. If you would have polled people back in high school, it would have been the business route. All those kind of things. Everything but education, probably. Yeah. To be honest with you, I always
had Dale as the education coach guy.
Yeah,
not you.
He was a lot smarter than me. Right. So he's made it now. Like he's doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing. Very, very bright. But yeah, he would have probably been. He's a college professor in his line of family counseling and Christian counseling.
I didn't realize he was a college professor.
Yeah, he's all over the place, man. Now he lives in Kansas City. So, he'll send me stuff from the Chiefs games and stuff all the time where they're sitting up there. Matter of fact, the Jags and Chiefs playoff game, he was there. Him and his son Easton. So his son Easton's one of the top golfers in the country. He won the NAIA national championship as a freshman. Solo golfer, and transferred to Louisville, so now he's on Louisville's team. So, but he's got 2 more coming that are going to be. He's got 2 more boys coming that are going to be just as good as him. But yeah, so we left JU, and I had no idea, like none. And I just went into the business world, worked my way up in Walmart distribution center. They had built a brand new one on 90 in between, Baker and Baldwin, and got on there. Fortunate enough to get on there and work myself up really fast. I was managing there. There was probably 13 managers in the whole building, and out of 1,000 employees, and I was one of them at 25 years old. So, like, that was what I thought it was. And then it's really weird how I got into this, man. I had not went to a football game. I love football. X's and O's football for me is the best.
Right.
Like, and I'll get into some Sully stuff in a little bit, but the head-to-head, my X's and O's versus yours. And a lot of times it's Jimmy's and Joe's in high school, let's be honest with it. But the college game is a lot of X's and O's because they all got similar people for the most part. But loved that part of it. But I had not went to a game since I graduated high school. This is past, not one.
Yeah, we're 5-6 years out now.
Oh, yeah, we're at least 6 years out. So I go to a playoff game, Baker and Palatka. A buddy of mine wanted to go, and we're up sitting in the bleachers, and it just wasn't. I'm not one of those guys that are going to yell at the coach. I've never have been because I know how hard it is. I mean, I've been inside there.
Right.
I've been inside the dugout with Stapes, and as a player, you understand. Like you're not one of those guys. I mean, I'm just not. And you guys are probably not one of those guys. But there was we botched a couple things. Like should have took a timeout, saved ourselves, quite a bit of time going into halftime, and did a couple things poorly. And I was talking to my buddy, like we're talking right here. Well, I guess there was a mom or somebody that was close to the program, like one seat down from us, and she had heard enough. And she was like, she turned around and said, well, if you're so much better at it than everybody else around here, why don't you get a whistle and go do it? And then before I had, she kind of caught me off guard. And before I had even known, I said, you know what? I just might, and I probably will, and I'll be the head coach here one day. and then I just left it like that. And I got back home. I was like, man, that was stupid. You shouldn't have. That was stupid to even say. You live in this community. You work in this community. You're a manager at Walmart, blah, blah, blah. And from that point forward, man, it was like, it wasn't even 6 weeks probably. And I went into the I went into the manager at Walmart, and I went into the HR person and said, I think I'm going to go coach football. And they were like, What are you talking about? I was like, yeah, I think so. I called Bobby Johns, maybe my biggest mentor in this game. Called him and talked to him about it. He's like, don't do it, man. You got things going in the right direction. I was like, nah, man, I think I'm going to. And he said, well, if you're going to do it, let's do it right. And he ended up coming back. That was his first year back in Baker. And so it all kind of timed up. He come back to Baker from Bluntstown, and I went in and told the people I was quitting, which was crazy, but I told the woman that I was going to do it. So in the bleachers that night. So
has she ever come back and said anything?
You know what? I don't even know who it was.
That would have been great. Like 10 years later, you were right. You said you were going to do it, and you did it.
So yeah, man, and it was from there. I don't know why that happened. I don't know why it worked out that way. Like if I hadn't went to that game that night in Palatka, I'm probably not here. To be honest with you, hanging out with you guys talking football. It's just weird how life works. It was 6 weeks from the time I told that lady that to the time I had quit, and I was just. And I was making good money, like right there at home, and then I went to subbing, full-time substitute teaching salary, like married, and boy, that was a
just went out on a limb.
Man, it was craziness to even think about it, now of what it was, and then but that's kind of how it happened.
But you're what at this point? What are you, 24?
I was 26, probably 25 or 26. Yeah, something like that. And then I said, if I'm going to do it, like I'm still relatively young enough to make it happen. So man, it's still weird to even talk about like the direction of. I mean, I'd planned on being in Bentonville, Arkansas. To be honest with you, getting ready to retire, making millions right now. That's where I thought I was headed. Yeah. And I get to hang out with y'all.
A theme on this show has been just kind of mentors, right? Like I guess I've never put it together, even though I knew it, I've never put together that you had the trifecta of, Stapes, Rusty Green, and Bobby Johns.
Yeah.
And 3 completely different personalities. Great coaches, great leaders, but 3 completely different styles of leadership.
And 9th and 10th grade, you can even add Coach Danny Green in there.
Oh, right? Yeah, DG.
He was our head coach,
I forgot about that. He
was our head coach, and Bobby was his head JV coach and his defense coordinator.
Right. Okay.
And that was kind of the connection. And then when those guys left and went to Columbia and then on to other places, Haines City and whatever, like I kind of stayed in touch with Bobby, and I would see him from time to time. And then when I called him, I said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. And then I think he had an inkling that it was it for him at Bluntstown, and he would be heading back. I think that was kind of, it was at the end of the season or whatever. But he brought me over to a playoff game, like really showed me what it was about. Like from day one, he said, if you're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And brought me over there, got to hang out with them all day for a Thursday walkthrough, and then the game Friday night to see what it was about. And long story short, I guess he comes back to Baker, and the DC that was supposed to be there at the time ended up not making it. Bobby had to let him go or whatever. I was an in-class teacher at this time. I had gotten my stuff to be a teacher. I wasn't subbing anymore, and I was a teacher in the business. And he called me one day, and I was in a business class. He said, hey, next week you're going to be in the gym with me. I'm going to let such and such go, and you're the new DC. This is year one. I never coached a day of anything in my life. And
you'd been out of football for 6 years.
Oh, I hadn't played, 6-7 years at least. Oh, more than that, 8 or 9 years. And for him to do that, man, two things. It makes you want to work really hard for somebody that's got that kind of belief in you. And he did. He from day one, he just said, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, man, I got a lot of questions. Like I'm going to be right beside you. And he's like, you do whatever you got to do. And like, it didn't matter if it was going to talk to boosters. It didn't matter if it was going to see a guy at the bank. It didn't matter if we were sitting there putting game plans together. He took the time we spent a lot of hours together, side by side, on the board, talking through personnel, talking through what we wanted to do, game planning. I had no clue of any of that. Right. I mean, you don't know any of that when you get into it, and just how much time it is. And I'll never forget, man, we played West Nassau in the kickoff classic, year one together. He's like, all right, we got back, watched the film. He's like, I'll see you guys at 7 on Saturday morning. Kids will see y'all at 8. And that was just, I didn't even know that was a thing.
I come up on Saturday or Sunday or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, bringing the kids up, making sure they were iced up and feeling better, and watch the film with them, having breakfast for them. It just gave me the insight and a lot of the stuff that I still do today. 20 years later, I got from him. So he's probably the main reason that I'm in this business, and the main reason I got into it from day one. When he said, let's make sure we do it right, that's what he meant, and he showed me the ropes.
And you stayed with Bobby for 3 years there in Baker, then went to Milton for a year,
yep.
Bacon for a year,
yep.
and then 6 years into this,
yeah,
you're a head coach at Swanee.
Yeah, insane.
One of the historic programs in the state.
Yeah, it people wouldn't believe this a lot of times if I told them. I mean, I don't know how many of the guys I know now that applied for that job. It was over 100.
Yeah. Right.
It was over 100, and they hired a guy that had been a DC for 6 years that got into coaching that had no idea what he was getting into, and then I had no head coaching experience at all. But those guys, Hunter Abercrombie was the AD over there, Ted Roush is the superintendent now. He was the principal. Mm-hmm. And those guys that were in that interview process, they brought in 10, and they told me there was a little over 100 applicants, and they brought in 10 to talk to. And for them to give me the shot, there was probably a lot of skeptics. I would have been one of them.
Sure.
You're going to hire a guy at
definitely not
this
the safe
program,
pick.
Right? No, it wasn't safe at all. You're going to hire a guy at this program that has won all those state championships and is known for their toughness and known for playing really good football, and they were not good at that time.
Right.
I mean, it was in a bad spot.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And for them to give a guy that had no experience a shot was it was really good on them, I guess.
Yeah, very cool.
So yeah, it was.
So been with Bobby, the only head coach you've worked for.
Yep.
And now, boom,
yep.
You're a head coach.
Yeah, we started together in 2006, and then 2012 I got the head job in Swanee. Man, like I said, it wasn't bad. Listen, when I tell our kids all the time at Bradford, because we don't go live very much anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Our guys in Bradford, I mean, they understand. Like, they love to hit people.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And when you're physical enough, you don't have to do it in practice.
Right.
They're ready. They
Almost
know how to
make
tackle.
the dog hungrier.
That's right. That's exactly right. And turn them loose on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how it was at Swanee.
No.
I mean, we hit every day. And when I tell you every day, week 7, there was still no walkthroughs on Thursday. We were in full gear on Thursdays. So we were Monday through Thursday, we were full gear. My offensive line coach now at Bradford played for me that first year in 2012. He said, I don't know how we made it out compared to what we do nowadays.
Right.
I said, I don't either, man. I was trying to make a point about toughness, and I probably about killed about half of you probably.
So year one, are you just Bobby Light? Are you just almost identical everything Bobby did?
There was a ton that was the same. Yeah, it was black and blue from day one. In spring, like, we got to learn how to block and we got to learn how to tackle. We will not line up and run a play till I know we know how to do both of those things, and I beat the crap out of them. It was, back then it was still 2-a-days a little bit, and you could be a little rougher, and those the people over there, they understood what it took to win. It just wasn't going on, you know what I mean? And they knew that you had to be physical and all those kind of things. It just been lost a little bit. And so the kids were hungry. They wanted it.
And you probably had some kids whose dads played for Pittman, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect storm. It was Andre Davis's, a couple of his nephews, guy leading tackler in the NFL. Mm-hmm. You can't be too hard on kids when when that's his nephews. And then several of them had remembered the Coach Pittman days, right? And they wanted that back. And then, but all the credit, this, Sully, the kids were hungry. They were willing to do whatever it took, especially the best players on the team. They worked the hardest, and that was all it took. Once those guys, I mean, we got after it every day. Like, I got punched in the mouth. At least, I mean, I'm talking about I took a good right hook one day in black and blue, but that was when I was starting to figure out, like, we're getting it. Like, these guys they're getting tougher, and that's what it takes to win football games. And then 3-7 the first year, it was, I had so many people come to me after the season and be like, Coach, I can't believe how much we're improved. And I'm sitting there going, this is
won
terrible.
3 ball games.
Yeah, this is terrible. Like, I almost got fired. We almost lost to Hamco. You know what I mean? I almost lost to Coach Pittman at Hamilton. And they said, no, you don't understand. It's a lot better than where we were. And then the next year. And so, funny story, I was thinking about this on the way over here. Madison threw boot pass against us with 1:50 left to beat us 49-7 that year. Right, the good guys were still in, and we didn't have one player that could play for them.
Sure,
you know what I mean. And I remembered our kids, how hungry they were. They were squalling after the game. I said, I want you to remember this feeling, because we're going to beat them before our time's done here. We're going to beat those guys. And it was 2. And the next year we lost 22-21. We missed an extra point, and then the following year we beat them 18-16. So those guys that stayed, they figured it out. Like, you know, the guy we had, Andre's nephew, kid named Denzel Washington, was a running back for us. He was in 10th grade that year, and all those guys. Man, the Swanee group was a special group of kids. They were so hungry, and they endured the old Coach Rodgers. Like, the guys these days probably couldn't handle him like that.
And that was your first head job, so you didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better.
So you were grinding because that's how you thought, we got to get tougher, Yeah, I can identify with that.
And then they got tougher, and they stayed and stuck it out, and they started winning.
Right.
And they knew what it took from that point forward. And those guys will still call me today, you know, from time to time, which is what it's really all about.
So is that first group always special?
Always special. I was at Deerfield Beach,
right.
and they had a bunch of losing seasons, and we got in there and won 6. And like I told you before, we were going to lift weights and hit, and we were in uppers on Thursdays, and we were, you know, and then towards the end, Monday we're in helmets, and Thursday we're in helmets.
That's right. So you can relate to what I'm.
Oh no, I know exactly what you mean.
And like, that's the only place where I really had to do that. And I'm sure we'll talk about cooking a little bit, but that's the only place in Florida that I've had to do that. When I got to the other places, the kids were already physical enough. It was just the other things that had to, you know, some people in better positions, I thought, you know, especially on defense and things like that you figure out. Yeah. But that first 4-year stint in Swanee, man, it really shaped. It got us going, and I got a lot of the credit. Like, I got a lot of the credit for making a really bad team a really good team very fast. And, you know, and you hear that all the time, but what it was the players' willingness to just throw it all out there. Especially the best players work the hardest on that team. And that was what changed it all.
It's year 3, right? Special group. Now it's your system. It's your kids. You know everything.
Yep.
State semifinal appearance.
Yep.
State coach of the year. third year in as a head coach.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, a year and a half later, the Baker County job knocks.
Yeah. I got a phone call.
If it's anywhere but home, do you leave?
No, absolutely not.
Right.
Not North Florida. You know what I mean? Not anywhere that I would have wanted to be, probably. But I'll never forget, you know, Aaron McAllister, really good football player I had at Swanee, was playing in the state All-Star game, and I had the chance to coach it that year as an assistant coach. And I was on the way down to, I guess, is it the Villages is where they have it at. So I was on the way to the Villages that day, and I got a phone call, and it was, you know, the person who was going to do the hiring and firing in Baker County, and said, "Hey, this is my thought. This is what I want to do. We want you to be the head coach. We're not going to open it up. We're not going to have any of that." And I'll be honest with you, I had applied for it 2 years before. I had to go through the application process. And I won't say upset or bitter or anything like that, because that's not true. Tom probably got the job. He probably needed to. There was a lot of things that needed stability at that time that probably a second-year guy couldn't do. You know, especially it's hard to do it in your hometown, too.
Right.
You know, and I probably needed those experiences to have a lot of success, to win, you know, all those games and go to the state semis in year 3.
Well, it's a lot different, right? If you want the job versus them wanting you.
Correct. Yeah. There is a big difference.
Difference.
Oh, I mean, you know, the 2 years previous, you know, there was a lot of people that said, "Hey, you need to apply for this. They're going to open it up. You need to apply for that." And I did it, and it just wasn't right. Like, looking back on it, if I would have got the job then, it probably wouldn't have ended up the way that everything ended up for us. It probably just wouldn't have been right. I wouldn't have been ready for a lot of the things that I needed to. And so she made that call to me, and I said, give me 24 hours at least. I want to go coach this kid in this all-star game. It means a lot to him. It means a lot to me. And so they did. They gave me time, and I talked to a lot of people. You know, I talked to a lot of people, and it had some tell me the truth, and I had, you know, there was a couple that said, "Hey, you got a good thing going here."
I didn't think you were going to take it.
You probably need to stay. There was a lot of people that said, "Hey, we think you can do this there." Right. And man, the administration and the superintendent, they did. And when I tell you they did everything for me to stay, and that's important, man. Like, I've heard you talk so many times about having administration and people in the school system at the highest level that understand what it takes.
Yep.
And they did, man. They offered hunting land. They offered no classes. They offered, I mean, everything they could have given me, they did. They tried, you know. And
home calls.
And for whatever reason, it was important to, like, my brother wanted me to be the head coach there one day, and we lost him the year before.
Right.
And that was important to me. And I was able to get back and be around my family, my mom and dad a lot, And so that was, in the end, I took it for family reasons and some other things. Was football, at the place I played.
And that lady in the stands was following.
The lady in the stands, man, like she was in the back of my mind. And I was like,
I told her
there was some of that, Sully. There was,
right.
And I was like, I told this lady that day that I'd be the head coach here, and here it is. Like, here's my opportunity. I don't have to apply.
Right.
Like, they're just going to hire me, you know. And so
I got you. Well,
it ended up working out.
Before we get into the Baker County days, let's take a timeout. More with Coach Rodgers when we come back on After the Game.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices her pitching. Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports, from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. bakersport.com. In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome back to After the Game. Here with joining Coach Rodgers. Coach, we just got through, just accepted the Baker County job, coming home, see the family, friends, everybody's calling, everybody wants to be part of staff, everybody wants to support you.
Got 20 coaches, we had four supplements or something.
Everybody was your best friend growing up. Coach Ray, I know that takes. So how is it?
Let me tell you, it was great, man. It really was. We had tons of support, no question about that. If you've ever been to a game there on Friday night, it's one of those places, and Sully got to coach there against it, a couple of times, and had a lot of success.
There a couple times.
That's right, and we'll get into that.
He had a lot of success there.
Sully probably molded a lot of my coaching stuff that I do more than he realizes, but we'll get into that in a minute. But those losses we took to him back in those days really, really bothered me. So I started taking a deep dive and figuring out what he was doing to beat us. Yeah. And but anyway, when
Thursday nights were the key.
Thursday night, and then kicking the chain crew off, because the knock was the chain crew always cheated at Baker County. So the one year we're over there, and I'm like, oh no, they don't need 6 chain guys, and they're like, what do you mean? I go, they got to go. They ain't standing over here, and the old chain guys, they're like. And I'm like, nope, you got to go. And so they made them all move except the 3 guys, and that was funny, man. That was funny.
So, 16 was my first year there. And we went 10-2 immediately. Yep. It was the first time 10 wins in a long, long time. And Clay, beating Clay for the district championship really changed a lot of our kids' mindsets. And that's when I knew, because I knew how good Clay was. Clay was in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. Hoke was doing. They were doing a great job. Yeah, mm-hmm. And their coaching staff. We would go sit in the stands and watch them.
Another JU guy.
Scout them. Yeah, that's right. So we would scout. That's right. We went to school together. So we would scout those guys, and I would tell our staff, I was like, that's a staff. See how they're interacting, what they're doing, the way they're coaching. That's where we got to get to. We're not there yet. So I kind of used them even when I was in Swanee and then in Baker. But to beat them for the district championship in year one, I kind of knew that, one, we had a special group of kids. Like, we had some dudes that could play.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We had Baker County tough, dirt road, nasty kids.
You didn't have to hit every day.
We didn't have to hit every day. We hit up until about week 2. Right. And then Monday and Tuesday, we may have been in full pads. Wednesday was in uppers every week, no matter what. So, but those kind of things. And now they obliterated us in the playoffs. They were still where we wanted to get to. Right. They destroyed us round 2 or round 3 that year. So it had been round 2. We were 10-2.
Right.
So in round 2, they destroyed us, and that sent us to another level. because I was on those kids really hard, the ones that were returning, because we had the junior class was to this point, and I've had the last couple years in Bradford, but that junior class was special. That my first year that we're going to be seniors. Cooper plays with the Jags now.
Right.
All that group we had a huge group of linemen. We had skill kids, Seth Page, Lee Graham was unbelievable. Nick Lee. We had a bunch of guys that were never going to play Division I football because they were, vertically challenged like myself. A lot of them were 5'9", 5'10", 5'11" guys that could play football. And I knew what we had coming back, man. I wrote it on the wall every day. Like, this is what you want to get destroyed again by Clay, or do you want to? We're gonna get it right this summer in the weight room. That's what I was gonna say.
That group got after in the weight room.
I've never seen a group do what they did, and it was led by Cooper. When Cooper leads you,
right.
When he's in there and he's the baddest dude in there,
right.
It's easy to get everybody else going. You ain't gotta say nothing. Look at that guy.
Right.
That guy's gonna play in the NFL. I used to tell him I said that guy's gonna play in the NFL one day. Should he be outworking you? And no, sir. Right back after it. We had a bunch of sweat equity that year. Mm-hmm. Like, our kids ran harder. That loss really stung with them. And then 17 was obviously the special year. And without it being American Heritage, if it's a high school football team, we probably win it all that year.
Right.
I thought we were the best team in that classification outside of 7 NFL players on the same team.
Yeah. What type of hangover was after that year? Just made it to state championship game at alma mater, hadn't been done ever
80 years. Yeah.
Is that it, right? Is that the pinnacle, or
right?
Lost a big group, great group,
a really good group, but we had set the precedent, so people were. There's a couple things. It was right, and this is kind of taboo to talk about, but you have to these days. It was kind of when the transfer thing had kind of gotten popular,
right?
And so guys were looking around, going, "Hey, they lost a really good safety. I'm a good safety," and our team went 1-9. So like, a couple kids showed up that are normally not showing up in Baker, right? Mm-hmm. There's a kid from Lake City that wasn't playing a lot that showed up. Like, that had never happened, but the things weren't happening before. Tristan Hill, the second rounder I had to the Cowboys that played for me in Swanee, his brothers showed up. You know what I mean? And so it was those kind of things were happening now. And so the third year, yes, there was a little bit of a hangover.
Yeah.
Like, we knew what the pieces that we lost, but the standard was there now. So
gotcha.
like we knew we were going.
Not amongst the kids, maybe a little bit amongst the coaches.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly. And so we were like, we got to win the district championship again. That was important to us to three-peat against Clay. At that time was a big deal for us because that's where we want Clay and St. Augustine. That was the two. If you wanted to, that time, if you wanted to compare yourself to public schools, they were the best at that time. Mid 2000s to late 2000s, Jackson St. Augustine. That was who you compared yourself to, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were competing and beating both of them. Probably cost us another law. We beat St. Augustine my very first game in week 1 of my first year, and I thought that was huge for the momentum for us. Should have been. We got hammered by them in 17. Huge, another big loss. So we lost to Clay in the playoffs after year 1, and then got beat week 1 pretty good by St. Augustine in week 1. And that was when the guys decided we reeled off 13 in a row after that to play for a state championship. But that loss was big. So people talk about scheduling a lot of times. I mean, I think their losses can be a motivation too. That's right. You know what I mean? Especially bad ones to teams. Especially when you got a big head and you think you've arrived, and somebody else says, "No, we're still them." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're still the best. So. It worked out, but 18 was a good year. I think 8-5. It's still a pretty good year. Multiple rounds deep in the playoffs. It just wasn't. We were missing a little something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were just missing a little something, and maybe it was those 6'4", 350 pounders.
Right.
When you lose them,
you're
a lot better coach with them guys than you are with the 5'10", 225s.
No doubt.
That guard. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
No matter how gritty and tough you are, you're still better with those other guys. So.
So the off season comes, and the allure to go to Georgia is just too much to turn down.
Another one of those weird stories, Josh. Man, it was. I just got done messing with physicals. I was the AD at this point in Baker. Mm-hmm. Just got done. Had a huge file of them. Had my feet up on my desk, kind of just about half this size, and I was just sitting. And phone rings, and it's a Georgia number on my cell number. I pick it up, and I haven't talked to Coach Nobles in a long time. Buddy Nobles. Mm-hmm. He was at Union for a lot of times. Then he went up with Coach Pruitt to Fitzgerald, and then he branched off and got the Irwin County job. I hadn't talked to him in 10 years. He coached against us in baseball, so he coached JV. So he was at the JV and the varsity game. So he knew of me. We had talked several times at coaches' clinics somewhere along the way, and very, very, very religious man. Right. Great man.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy. One of the best people to talk football with and life with, really. And he said, "Hey, Jamie, it's Buddy Nobles." And I was like, Coach Nobles? It'd probably been 6 or 7 years since I talked to him. And he said, "Hey, man, listen." He said, "I don't know why." He said, "God laid this on my heart." He said, "Cook County job's coming open in a couple weeks. I think you're the man for the job." Just like that. Straight, blunt, 2 sentences.
He wasn't at Cook, didn't have.
Oh, no. He was at Irwin.
Yeah.
I hadn't talked to him in years, and so we talk. Not really about the Cook stuff much further. He didn't know a whole lot about the situation. I'm assuming that he knew somebody there that had called him, reached out to him, and we never really even got into it, like why he called me or whatever. He just did, and so I got looking into it, and then obviously, George knew the guys up there. Went and saw Cleve. I don't know, one day after the season had gone over, passing through, we were going to vacation. I just stopped and talked to him, introduced myself or whatever. And then same kind of deal, man. It was like 125 applicants. I mean, for a South Georgia job, it's always going to be that way.
Right.
And no state championships on my resume, those kind of things. And for whatever reason, I got the opportunity. I mean, I'd like to say Coach Nobles had a little, behind the scenes, I don't know if he had anything to do with it or not, but that phone call made the difference. And there were some things going on that were going to be tough decisions for a lot of people in Baker County, and I wasn't willing to put them in that position. It was going to be hard. It was going to be hard on a lot of people for me to stay there. I was going to have some other things it was a lot. It was personnel. It wasn't really finances. I hadn't really thought about it at the time, to be honest with you. But $35,000 a year is a lot for a guy with his wife staying home with their kids. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
35 years. It's
and you had reached
money.
the point in your career at that type of program where you needed a little more control.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Baker wasn't the place to give you that
right
type
then.
because they weren't used to that. They didn't understand that model. Whereas South Georgia is that model.
South Georgia, it is the model. And I've been very fortunate to have the model at Bradford, and I guess maybe all that comes with it. But, it was I was going to put a lot of people in bad predicaments, people that I like, you know what I mean? From personnel, like I said, from personnel on my staff on down the line, it was just going to make it hard. And rather than do that and still try to build it, we had played for a state championship. I was super proud of that. So the answer to your earlier thing, am I glad I went? Yeah, running out of that tunnel that day in Orlando in Camping World Stadium with the colors that I had played for and only dreamed of, right? And I get to lead them out. I'd never change that. I would never change that. So the decision was right for me to leave Swanee and go there based off just that.
Right.
And then when I went to Georgia, I had no idea how tough it was going to be. Not just football. First of all, football was tough because we had Fitzgerald, who was a machine.
Right.
They were in our it's regions up there, but it's district down here. So Fitzgerald was rolling. I mean, that was a machine. Tucker had been there for a long time.
Is Tucker running it?
Tucker had been there for a while. Robbie had been gone to coffee for quite some time, and they were rolling. I mean, state runner-up, state champion, state runner-up. This is all years in a row, and now here I am there with them. Thomasville. You roll into Thomasville, they're 110 deep with only 750 kids in the school, right? So, and it's just so before you've even lined up to kick off in the spring, you're third at best. I mean, just where you are,
right?
And I was and I'll get to that here in just a minute. So you're battling for third. The top 4 teams in each region go. We made the playoffs all 3 years, but year 1 was a struggle, man. We ended up with probably 4 or 5 seniors left. I kicked so many off. I had to get rid of some guys. And I'm not. My players will tell you I'm not one of the guys. I'm a second chance guy. I'm a third chance guy. A lot of times, especially depending on what kids need.
Right.
And it was really bad. There were some discipline issues that were out of control. And I don't think anybody would tell you any different from there. They had to lead the nation the year before I got there in 15-yard penalties. Had to. Based off the films I watched. And then we still had some of those left over, and that was some of the stuff. I mean, I'd make them run. I'll tell you this true story. Spring, we play Manchester and Crisp County. We come home, and one of the bus drivers we drove the bus. The coaches got paid. I mean, you get paid like $100 a trip up there to drive buses. It's awesome. I drive them. I drive other sports. And so he, our bus driver, our assistant coach, got a call from one of our assistant coaches in the back, said, "Hey, somebody just threw a sub out the window. We're on 75. And I said, all right. And so I said, I'll handle it when we get there. He flips on. I said, turn that light on. And he flips the light on the bus, and there's a dude standing up, and he's getting ready to hurl one towards the front of the bus at another kid. And so I let him have it. Wasn't proud of myself really after that speech, but I said, I'll take care of you guys when we get home. And we did. Both of them buses unloaded. We went straight out. Some of them were in girdles. Some of them were in nothing. And we ran for an hour. This is 1 o'clock in the morning. We ran from 1 to 2. Gassers back and forth across the field. But I thought I needed to set the precedence discipline-wise.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did, and it got much better from there. I lost several that night. And then I ended up kicking a few more off on Monday. And through that, there was a ton of 9th and 10th graders had to play, right? And so I kept up with them. Long story at the end here. I kept up with them. They beat Fitzgerald. They beat all those guys this year. There was a lot of the kids that were starting for me. They won the region championship this year for the first time in a long time. And, I'm proud of them. But, I got to coach those guys, and I just if we hadn't have got it right then, I don't know if it would have ever got back right. But us we went 4-8, made it the second round of the playoffs that year. We were 0-7, started off 0-7 before region schedule, went 2-1 in the region that year and got into the playoffs and won a playoff game 7-6. We blocked a punt, returned it for a touchdown with a minute left to win 7-6. And we wouldn't have scored if we'd have played 10 games on offense. And we blocked the punt, scooped and scored it to win. But anyway, it was and then won the sportsmanship award for the region year 3. It just everything had changed. And it was trending up, and that was probably our best job that we did as a coaching staff, honestly. The wins and losses doesn't reflect it, but just changing everything that was there, and it was hard. And Coach Nobles, to his credit, said, hey, it's bad there right now. I'm just letting you know I think you're the guy for the job. And I would promote you for the job if anybody asked. Yeah. And he said, God laid you on my heart. So it was a lot of things. It was money. It was that phone call was probably 70% of it. I'll be honest with you. For him, even the application process closed at midnight. I turned it in at 11:56. I sent my email to Cleve 4 minutes before it closed. So it was that tough a decision. It really was. And but it was, once again, it's been the right decision for me. Financially, I was able to do a lot of different things.
But that job never felt like I'm gonna end my career here.
No.
I'm just talking to you.
No, I don't think so. Well, when we lost my dad in 2021 to COVID, that was I come home and I saw my wife. I could see it in her face.
Yeah.
She was fine up until that day. And then I think she started seeing our kids grow up without seeing her mom and dad and then my mom.
Right.
And I could just see it on her, and she had sacrificed a ton.
Well, and you'd had a big bout with it as well, right?
Oh, yeah. I was in the hospital for 5 days, and there were people in Tifton. I was in the emergency place in Tifton, and there were people passing away left and right. I mean, they were. Nurse come in one day, and she's crying. I'm like, it was one that it was my 3rd day in, so I'm a people person. I want to get to know you or whatever, especially if you're going to try to help me live, which is I'm really appreciative of.
Right.
And she was upset, and I said, lost somebody today, and she said, yeah, right next door. And those difficult times, man. When you're in there 5 days, no visitors, nobody could come see you. But I'll tell you what it did. Talking to her, and she was great. And it got me out of that bed, and I started walking around, and I'd walk laps inside. I mean, it was way smaller than this office. It's half this office size, and I just walk laps all day long. I mean, I'd get up at 8, and I'd walk till noon and do the breathing thing. And I wasn't going out in a hospital bed in Tifton, I can tell you that, after that day. So I wanted to see my kids again. But no, it never was it. I just felt like but when talking to my wife, I said, we're going back. Like I'll make sure we get back. I actually taken a job in the cell phone industry, T-Mobile. It was going to be from Jacksonville to New Orleans. I was going to be gone about 100 days a year, but I'd already taken it in January of 22. One of my buddies is way up in T-Mobile, and he said, if you want to get back near Jacksonville, I'll get you back near Jacksonville. So we did that, and Will Hartley called a couple weeks before it was time, I guess, and he said, this is what we got. I'm not going to interview anybody. It's your job if you want it. Here's what we can do. And to his credit, Will Hartley is a leader, man. He's a leader. He did everything it could take.
Principal, right?
No, he's the superintendent. Yeah. It was above all principals. Like he said, this is what we're going to do. He said, and it's yours right now if you want it. I said, give me 24 hours. And I just didn't feel like football was over for me. I still felt like it was. I needed to coach a little bit more. I love coaching. I love the kids and stuff like that. So. And
you got 100 more nights in your own bed.
I got 100 more nights at home instead of from here to New Orleans. Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing. And then them obviously doing everything they could possibly do to make it almost like a Georgia job.
I was going to say, is the Bradford job, has it been kind of a combination of the other three?
Well, I tell people all the time I've been so fortunate. I've had Swanee was a 12-month job. Those are rare.
Right.
Bradford's a 12-month job. Baker at my time was 11, but I was the AD, so it was like being 12, right? I was, I've been fortunate. That's 3 of my jobs, and then obviously to get paid South Georgia money. Those are the 4 jobs I've had, and
But just from a Bradford standpoint, it just seems like to me you got, the desire to win that Swanee had, right?
Yes.
Wanting to be good.
Yep.
You've got the money from South Georgia and the resources, and then you're close enough to home.
Yep.
That you're.
Yeah, we never sold our place. I still live in the same place I did when my kids were born. We rented it out when we left and bought a house up there. And when we got back, we just went right back into our house. So, and it's a 22-minute drive, 23-minute drive every single day. The traffic's the same every day. I'm by myself out there. I can tell you exactly where I'm going to be in 10 minutes. It's that kind of thing. And you had to be in a one school county. That's kind of who I am a little bit. Like, I don't know if I could do. Maybe I could. Like, I don't know if I could do what Sully did. That was his niche. I like to think that I could coach any type of guy, but I don't know.
Right.
Like, I've never done that. And
I don't, just the way that you and I were raised, I don't know that we would be okay in that environment where kids come and go and they got all these different private schools pulling from them and everything else. I just don't.
Yeah, it was, and maybe that wasn't. Yeah, you're right. Like, there was so much in the mid-90s. Still, there was a lot of pride in where you went.
Right.
Even if you weren't very good.
Yeah.
There was still a ton of pride before the transfer thing. Like, we never thought about, like, Hunter and I got approached one time because we were both football, baseball guys. We were both the same by bowls, right? One time, and like me and him talked about it. We're like, nah, man, this is the guys we played Little League, the finals in Little League 10U. Stuff. This is the same dudes that we're still playing with, and that was it. Like, we never had the discussion anymore. Well, nowadays, man, it's unbelievable. The street agents and the people that are talking to these guys and the lies. There's parents out there of other kids that are telling, hey, Josh, man, if you come here, you'll have the number you want, and you're gonna be a starter. You're a freshman, and I'm like, this is insane, dude. Like, and I can't be a hypocrite. I won't be a hypocrite. My teams have had some success based off of some guys that have transferred in, right? Starting back with Tristan Hill. Your team gets a lot better when a second-round defensive lineman comes in.
Sure.
Second-rounder to the Cowboys transfers in from Madison. You get a lot better, right? But when I was in Cook, I lost them to Valdosta. And ever since then, I've lost some here and there, right? And so I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. But the way it goes about it's really, really poor. Like, things that happen, like people lying to these kids and not caring about what's best for them. And the kids obviously want to play, but the best thing for a 150-pound wide receiver and DB is to be really good on JV and then move your way up in a good program and then be a starter as 11th and 12th grade. If you're not special, you don't need to be starting on a Friday night. Bobby told me, every 9th and 10th grader you have starting on defense in a good program, that's a loss. That's a loss in a varsity season. So if you have 2 or 3 10th graders starting on your defense, that's 2 or 3 losses in a 10-game year. That's what he always said. Like, that's the way he always felt, and he's right. Everywhere I've been, I've been blessed. Since I've been in Bradford, we've had none. We've had no 9th and maybe 1 or 2 10th graders start for us the whole time. And
well, in today's world, I mean, with the reclass kids and all that stuff, that's the difference between playing 19-year-olds versus 16-years.
That's exactly right.
That's a big difference.
It is. And
physically
sport,
and maturity,
especially in football.
Correct.
And so, but you got these guys just telling these kids what. And a lot of times it's not even the kids. It's a parent telling another parent what they want to hear, and then the kids get involved. But if they just stick it out, especially if you're in a good program, like, listen, I get it. If the team you're on's been 0-10 and there's no vision or anything like that, I get it. Like, I get somebody reaching out to want to go play better themselves. I get that. But like in the majority, I would say the 80 or 85% of the teams, I mean, it's better to probably stay where you're at most of the time. Like, you can figure it out. Like,
and the crazy thing is, everybody's so tied into, oh, he's got to get a scholarship.
Yeah.
Well, you got 100 Division I guys coming in through the month of May because you got Division I players.
Right.
So like,
they're coming here.
Right. Like,
now.
Why? You know, I never understood that. Like, you know, every spring we'd have on our board and thing, every school that's been in. You know, we'd have 75 to 80. I'm like, well, why do you got to go anywhere else? They come here. If you're any good, they're going to find you.
Somebody's lying to them.
Yes, 100%.
Most of the time, because a kid most of the time can't figure that out. The thing that's probably changed the most when you started to when I started is everybody tries to beat everybody on social media. They got to be first. They got to be this. They got to be that.
Yeah.
Thanks to such and such for offering me this and this and this. And I get it, to be proud of it. I understand that side of it. But it's turned into something that it's not supposed to be. Well, you can't get an offer from a school that don't have scholarships.
Right.
Like, that's not possible.
Yeah.
You can't go in there and say, thankful for the offer I got. That's not an offer.
Yeah. You're paying to play. All the guys that used to commit to JU.
Correct. Correct. You're paying to play football, which is okay. Go do it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. All right, well, we're running out of time here. But, you know, we didn't get to touch on the Bradford deal. Maybe we'll do that next time. But you've been ultra successful at Bradford, you know, coming – back again with
really
a loaded roster, some great players, you know, Stapes, you know, on the coaching staff, locking things down. And I know you're learning a lot from him and what he was able to accomplish in his flag football run.
He'll tell you if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Just look at the tweets, you know, asking if the scoreboard was broken and all the other stuff he had going. But
but to what you're talking about, Will, the administration, the people,
they're supporting you.
It's been unbelievable, and you're not going to be 26-3 in 2 years without that.
Yeah,
like
100%.
the players first, and then that support.
Yeah. So before we let you go, we ask everybody to close out the show with one question. So, what would current Coach Rodgers tell first-year Coach Rodgers? One piece of advice.
Not to beat them kids up so much, probably all the way to week 7, and lose half the team. But no. Probably patient. I'm much more patient than I am now. Like with the situations that a lot of these guys have to go through. Like it's you can't treat everybody the same.
Right.
And at the beginning, I treated them all the same, and that was wrong. Like, you two guys come from different places, right? And on a football team of 70, that's 70 different places a lot of times, and some of them aren't good, and they need a mentor and a leader more than they need a football coach sometimes, and that's what this Coach Rodgers would tell that one.
That's awesome, man. Hey, brother, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having us. It was awesome. A lot of fun.